I have got my yeast all separated into vials, and this is the very first attempt at a tropical IPA. I am calling it New Zepa, and it's kind of got a theme to it. And we'll get into that and everything else that goes into this right now. So New Zepa, that's the name. And that is because I just dumped a bunch of pages on the floor. Luckily it didn't get on camera. Maybe I'll edit that out so you didn't know I did it. Most of the hops are from New Zealand. So there you go. New Zealand, New Z, IPA. Probably didn't need to spell it out. The hops in question, they are, well, the very first one is not. That's why I said most of them are. Very first one is Magnum. We're going to put that in for bittering. But the rest, everything else, is from New Zealand. We've got Nelson Sauvin, Pacific Jade, Motueka. Don't know if that's how you say it. And then that's everything in the boil. Those four I listed. And there's a dry hop. I don't remember what. Motueka. Now I'm really overthinking it. Motueka hops and Nelson. And then I messed up Nelson Sauvin. Nelson Sauvin in the dry hops. So that is what is going to this first attempt of the tropical IPA. And of course the Omega. I almost called Omega. Wow, you guys remember the Omega zip drive? So the Omega Yeast, the tropical IPA strain, and we'll see what we'll get. Here it is, the grist for the grain bill and the hops for the boil. 2 pounds of 2-row pale malt, 4 ounces of 10L crystal or crystal 10L, yes, better said. 4 ounces of carapils, 2 ounces of flaked oats, and 2 ounces of flaked wheat. For the boil, there's 0.15 ounces of Magnum, 0.18 ounces of Nelson Sauvin at 10 minutes, 0.18 ounces of Pacific Jade at 5 minutes, and 0.1 ounce of Motueka at 1 minute. And that is it. I will mill these up, mix it in with that, and get going. Well, this would have been the time lapse where you saw me get the water ready and mill the grains, had to add the camera on, but I didn't. So let's take a look what we got here. So I have 3 gallons and 11 cups of distilled reverse osmosis water, and I'll put what that is in liters on the screen here. I have that ready to get to 170 degrees. In here, there's the grains milled twice in the bag ton, as I call it, that we're going to mash out in, and I have the minerals to add in here to make up for the reverse osmosis purified water. Let's see, I'm going to go off the top of my head, see if I remember. I think it's 1.1 grams of gypsum. No, 1.4 grams of gypsum, 0.1 grams of regular old table salt, 1.1 grams of Epsom salt, and I believe, this is where I might be wrong, 0.9 grams of calcium chloride. If not, I'll put the corrections up on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in there now. Sort of. I need a third arm. There we go. And get that ready for the mash. So waiting for that to get to about 165 or so. Mix it around, warm up the cooler here to 162, 163, then drop the grains in. That should get us meshing in about 153. In fact, let's see what this is at. Yeah, we're nowhere near ready yet. All right, we mashed for an hour. I just did a simple iodine test. Everything's converted. So let's get the bag out of there and let it drain. Trying to get it straight in the air and get the colander into there before anything drips on the counter that my wife can see. I think I did it, but I'll check the footage later. Gonna let that drain for a couple minutes, then Vorloff, and then let the whole thing sit for like a good 10 minutes to make sure we got everything out of the bag. I finished Vorloffing, so I'm gonna let this drip for like another 10 minutes. See if we can see it's still, there we go. Still dripping. I could squeeze the bag at this point. That's the motion for squeeze. That was for something else. We won't get into that. There's nothing wrong as far as I'm concerned from what I've read and seen and experienced with squeezing a brew bag. I don't believe the whole thing about it creating off flavors or more tannins or anything. Again, from what I've experienced, I'm not going to squeeze this bag because I haven't typically squeezed the bag in these 1 gallons, mainly because I forgot when I first started doing them, and I liked the results I got, and I based these recipes off the amount of grains and water that I've gotten good results. So I'm not going to mess with the results. It's not because I think there's anything wrong with it. It's that I hadn't done it with what I'm building from. Maybe I'll kind of reset that whole idea and try squeezing a bag to kind of reinforce that idea that it's okay to do. But in this case, I'm aiming for a specific result, so I'm going to leave well enough alone. So in about a little more less than 10 minutes, I'm going to take this out and transfer the sweet wort into the boil kettle. Now, I'm out of tubing to do that, so I'm going to have to do it the very, very manual way. All right, there we go. There it is. We got a little more than we needed. We got 2 gallons and 2 cups. Again, I'll put the liter measurement up on the screen. So we're going to do about not a 90-minute boil, but about a 75-minute boil. And yeah, that's about it. Need to set up for that. This is, I was going to say quite warm, but it's actually hot. And this little bit of amount, getting it out onto propane, we should get this up to a boil in almost no time. And this is Annie, my brewing assistant. You're going to see a lot of her in these episodes. Oil is going nicely. We're just about past the point of hot break, enough that I could take the camera out and do this recording quick. I did start the timer when the boil got rolling so that it wouldn't be more than 75 minutes. So you can see in a little less than 12 minutes, we'll start the boil additions, and there they are, all marked. There's the first hops. There's a Warflock tablet at 15 minutes. That's how long there is, anything between 60 and 15, and then the last 3 additions. And you'll see I did bag them because with 1 gallon, when you put the hop pellets directly in, it gets messy quick putting it into the fermenter. So I do know there's a little bit of a loss, but considering how big these bags are and how little hops are in there, shouldn't be that big a deal. See that little bag there? That was the 60-minute edition, and I did a little bit of getting it in there and an explanation in 10 seconds, except I forgot to hit record. So that's Magnum. It's a go-to hop for me for bittering. Nice base bittering that'll really, I think, complement the New Zealand tropical fruit hops, which is the idea of this beer. And thank you, neighbor, for that accompaniment. Since we've got a ton of time before the next thing in the boil, I was going to show you something real quick that in my entire history of brewing in Florida, I have never had to do. So let's take a look here. Okay, for the first time ever in Florida, and I emphasize Florida because you know what our temperatures are like, I have to heat my fermentation. I have never had to do that. We are in a strange cold spell right now, which never happened, so I wasn't anticipating that. Plus the fact that this yeast, which I didn't know when I bought it, does best between 75 and 85. So I wanted to ferment somewhere around 78, 79. So that's what I've set up after a couple days of trial and error. I've dug out this Inkbird I had for a cooling feature. And as you can see, I have it set at 78. It's a little high is because this thing is completely empty. If you haven't figured it out yet, it's a cooler. And I have tested this with full fermenters, so it doesn't rise this high. So let me show you what's going on in here. It's really simple. You can probably figure out what's going on in here. Oh, you can see it's empty. It's really light. I have a little ceramic heater, and I have the cords up out of the way. And there's the probe I'm going to put on the first fermenter that goes in here. These black spots, before anyone starts screaming mold, that's not mold. That's electrical tape. That's the sticky end of electrical tape. I tried taping these cords up with electrical tape first, and it did not work. And without getting in there with some chemicals that I don't want the aroma, the odor to seep into the fermenters, it's just going to stay for this fermentation. So, little heater. It's not very powerful if you actually wanted to heat something, like in the wintertime, like a room. But for, what is this, 48 quart cooler. It's perfect. It'll kick on when it drops below temperature. It'll kick on no more than 30 seconds in all my tests, and then turn off, and really won't need to kick on for another 3 hours. So I'm just amazed that for the first time ever in Florida, which I usually struggle to cool things, I have to heat my fermentation. So that's how we're doing it with this round of the tropical IPA yeast. Here is the teeny tiny bit of Warflock tablet, which is probably more than I need, but there it goes. All right, we're just about at 10 minutes, and here's the Nelson Sauvin hops, which I have never used. I've heard people go absolutely nuts about. So let me check the time. All right. It's time. 5 minutes. Pacific Jade. And last but not least, Motueka at 1 minute. Or however you say that. I'm probably saying it wrong. Okay, we got everything in the fermenter. And as you can probably see from the bubbles, I did aerate it by shaking the crap out of it. A couple things we have to do. Over here, I still have to put the insulation on top of that. The side was a little damp, so the tape didn't stick, but I wanted to get the sensor on to get everything going. I need to pitch the yeast, so let's talk about the yeast quick here. Here's one of the vials from the opening of this series. I decanted about half the beer out. So I'm gonna shake it up real good. Take the top off here, spray it with a little spray sand, star sand, and put it in. All right, here we go with the yeast pitch. Trying to look over the camera and have the camera on it. And there we go. Yeast is in. Also going to use the tilt hydrometer in this one. So we're going to drop that in like that. That's it. That's all that needs. Got the bung back in. And then finally the airlock in the form of a blow-off tube into an empty beer bottle of sanitizer. Because of the headspace we have in the cooler, I can't put a proper airlock on. But this works just as well. It worked for many of my 1 gallons. We're a little more than 24 hours into the fermentation, and I wish I'd taken a video last night, because I think we're at high Krausen last night, about 10 hours into it. But we're still, I don't know if I can get the camera in here, it's still really active. So we still have active fermentation, but the Krausen's kind of dropped. So looking good so far. This yeast, it took off pretty quick. I saw activity when I checked at 8 hours. Didn't quite see it at 6, but saw it at 8. So somewhere between those two is when this stuff took off, which is pretty quick. All right, it is a moment of truth for the first tropical IPA test, and I'm a little excited. This one is the New Zipa, at least that's the name. I pulled that name from using all New Zealand hops, except for, I believe, so I have my cheat sheet up here. Yes, Magnum. The Magnum hops at 60 minutes, but then we have Nelson Sauvin's Pacific Jade, Motueka, and I believe one for a dry hop. Oh, more Motueka and Nelson Sauvin. So this should be nicely carbonated by now. Let's see if we hear a hiss. Oh yes, we hear a hiss, and yes, definitely have a little of the gas rolling, actually quite a bit of gas rolling off the top here. And I'm going to explain this glass quick. If you haven't come over from the Neozaz channel where this show originated, it's an odd looking glass to taste in. It's not any kind of fancy specific style beer glass. I've used this glass, or I have 4 of these, one of these style glasses for every brew tasting I've ever done. I'm not saying that every one I've ever done is great. In fact, some are clunkers. But I have tasted them all on this, so it's not really a good luck, it's more of a tradition. So we'll be seeing this glass in every tasting, or one of its 3 brothers. So, all right, enough of the glass, let's get the beer in it. And, oh yeah, it's well carbonated, more than I'd actually probably want. That is quite a bit of carbonation. It's more than 2 fingers, it's like 2.5 fingers of carbonation, but let's get a little more in there. But besides that, actually, when I was holding it up, color is very nice. That is gold. That's just under like an exact gold. Not quite. It's definitely not a pale or light gold, but it is a gold color for sure. So clarity is really good too, actually. Not the glass is steaming up a little bit. I don't know if it's coming across on camera, but clarity is actually quite good. In fact, yeah, I can see if I can see the number on the cap through it. Oh, really well. Just a little funhouse mirror you're looking through a glass. All right. The important part is, what does it taste like? What's the aroma like? And everything that goes with that. So, definitely get hops, like just that whole general hops right off the nose right away. There's a little bit of sweetness to it and a fruitiness. And the first thing I pick out is like a pineapple scent, almost like specifically pineapple, almost an artificial pineapple, but not quite, sweet pineapple. And then with that is a little bit of kind of those tropical fruits that are a little, I'm not quite how to say, I'm not sure what the flavor profile is, but I'm talking like mango papaya, where it's like a little tart, little sour, and sweet all together. It's kind of got that aroma to it as well. Those kind of fruits. Let's get to tasting now. I will say right off the bat, the mouthfeel is that heavy carbonation. It's not moderately carbonated. It's highly carbonated. So let's take another taste here. I'm getting about the same amount and the same types of fruit in the aroma. Again, the first thing I can taste is like a pineapple followed with those kind of mango papaya mix in there a little bit. Of course, there's the usual herbal, maybe just a touch of floral with the hops that come with the nature of hops, but the fruits are almost identical to the aroma. It's interesting. It's actually unusually bitter. It's a lot more bitter than I would expect, and I don't think I used an unusual amount of Magnum hops. No, actually, of all the hop additions, it's the smallest one. It's just really bitter. It's not the strongest alpha acids. It's second strongest, but still, maybe. In fact, I'm gonna say 60 minutes is probably far too long for the style I'm trying to get here. It kind of takes away from the rest of what I wanted in this. I'm thinking now, if I do this one again, I would really like these New Zealand hops to shine. I think not only would I not use Magnum, I think I wouldn't do a 60-minute edition. I have a kind of a habit of starting with a 60-minute edition for all my new recipes. I think this one didn't need it. I think I could have jumped right to like the 20-minute, 15-minute. It's not the style I wanted. It's not the exact taste I wanted, but it's still pretty good. So I will have no problem finishing this, which I'm going to do right now after this video ends, which we are at the end at. So I'm going to say thank you for watching. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for the announcement of the latest when releases come out, and including the additional beers I made with this yeast and some more to come. So thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.